Have you seen this crazy video of the hallway shooting at the apartment in Brooklyn? A lot of ins and outs here. It's pretty complicated. Stay tuned. We're going to break it down for you. Hi, everybody. This is attorney Andy Marcantel and attorney Marc J. Victor. We're the partners of the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm here today to break down a pretty crazy video. How's it going, Mark?
You know, this guy didn't spend any time in training, did he?
No, you wouldn't say so.
What is this guy doing with a firearm is my question.
Well, we'll find out. Why don't we start out by looking at this video, and we should say this incident happened actually a couple weeks ago. We're releasing this in mid-November 2023. My understanding is this happened right at the end of October. There's another part to the story that happened in early November maybe we'll talk about, but let's watch the video. Here we go. All right, so the guy who's about to be the gunman is Mr. Jason Pass.
You want to stop it right there?
Well, my understanding is that this is a noise complaint. So apparently these neighbors have been having problems for a while, apparently, when we've dug into the background, and he's complaining at them for loud noises coming from their apartment. They're in an apartment.
So far, so good. Go talk to the neighbor. Don't just call the cops. Go up there and have a nice conversation with the neighbors.
It doesn't look like go up there and have a nice conversation with the neighbors. It looks like he's kind of yelling at them from across the hallway, right? Well, I imagine like a knock, knock, knock. Hey, guys, could you keep it down? I'd really appreciate it. There's something else going on here.
Yeah, on the other hand, he's not right at the door. He's not menacing. He's giving him some space. And so maybe it's let's give the guy the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely.
He's off to a good start.
Okay, here we go. All right, this woman is coming out to talk to him.
She doesn't look very threatening. So she's keeping her distance. Just a conversation at this point.
Starting to look a little tense by the body language on both sides. And more people are coming out of that door. So the guy's outnumbered at this point, and this guy's walking up very aggressively.
And he's also much bigger. And in his hand, he's got a weapon. He's got scissors. He's very close. He's up in his personal space. And scissors are definitely a dangerous instrument. He's holding them right to this guy's face. This right here, I would say, is absolutely an imminent threat of serious bodily injury. I don't think there's any question right there.
And that also kind of coupled with his posture, the speed at which he approached, could very, very reasonably be interpreted as this guy is intending to cause an imminent threat.
Yeah, I think at this point, Mr. Pass, the shorter guy, the fellow who started, the noise complaint, he's justified. If he wants to take action right here, he's certainly justified in using ordinary physical force. He's probably justified in at least threatening deadly physical force and maybe using deadly physical force. I mean, you got another guy much bigger. He's holding a sharp pair of scissors up to the guy's neck or face at least. That's an imminent threat of serious physical injury, maybe death. If Mr. Pass takes action right there, even with his firearm, I think he's got a defensible case.
Absolutely.
No
question. At this point, if he were to pull out that firearm and even discharge it, I think we're on firm grounds to say that there was an imminent threat, there was proportionate force use, and it was absolutely necessary in that moment to prevent.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see a step back first. Hey, man, leave me alone. Put the hand on the firearm. Maybe don't just pull the gun and shoot him. Although I still think we could be justified if that was the case. But we always like to see.
We would like to see that.
Right.
But this is a really important point because the law doesn't require you to act perfectly in a given situation, right? The law requires you to act reasonably.
Right.
And I think it's reasonable at this moment to pull out your firearm to defend
yourself. It is. But on my wish list of things to defend this guy, I'd like to see a little bit of an escalation of force, right? Him using an escalated amount. In other words, step back. First, maybe, hey, I got a gun. Put your hand on the firearm. Now, you may not have time, right? This guy's right in your face. And so, I don't think it's unreasonable if he just pulls the gun and shoots him. I like at least an attempt right now. Also, we're in New York. There's a duty to retreat here. We should mention that.
Yeah, there are 11 states in the United States that have a duty to retreat. New York is one of them.
So you have a duty to retreat. Of course, you don't always have to retreat, right? You only have to retreat if you can do so in complete safety. It sure doesn't look like that here. And given that it's not reasonable to think he could retreat in complete safety, you don't have a duty to retreat.
That's right.
You can stand your ground right
Like
there.
even some of the more or less defensive displays or attempts at slower escalation that you mentioned probably reasonably don't end well for this guy, for Mr. Pass, if he were to say them. I think a jury might find that it was very dangerous to do things like, hey, man, I got a gun, when there's a sharp pair of scissors right by your head.
Yeah.
So I can understand why he didn't try those kind of intermediary escalations.
Pretty much at this point, Mr. Pass is in good shape in terms of using self-defense.
I think we both agree on that. Notice, too, there the direction of the scissors. He's making no bones about it that the sharp end now pointed right. It looks right at his jugular vein, basically.
That's an imminent threat of death or serious physical injury, no question.
No question. This is important, too. Even the woman who is, I don't know her relationship to the man who she's pulling back, but she's clearly on his side in the argument and probably related in some way. And even she thinks he's being unreasonable by putting scissors against the guy's neck for this argument over the sound complaint.
She's clearly the smartest person on scene right here. She's trying to de-escalate. Hey, enough. Let's back off. So it's too bad she wasn't running the show here.
Yeah, let's keep going. Pulls him back. He looks like he tried to go back right there, and she pulls him again. And here's the gun. Okay, a couple of quick observations about the gun. First of all, how he's holding it, slightly angled, one hand. There's not a second hand on the gun at this point. A cowboy. He looks like he's holding it, trying to, I don't know, be intimidating, be threatening, basically like a cowboy, looking like he's running the show now. Maybe a little bit of peacocking going on here.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of an argument here, right? Because if you're a prosecutor and you're in New York, you might want to say, now he's got an opportunity to retreat in complete safety. Now, that's arguable, right? Because there's really not that much distance. On the other hand, he just goes down the stairs. He's probably okay there. He probably keeps the gun trained on him and then retreats in complete safety. So you got a little bit more difficulty right here if the guy just pulls the trigger. On the other hand...
A little bit, though. I'm still with him on the self-defense, and I might even be with him of a discharge of the firearm right here, frankly. I know it's a harder, sure, it's further away from our wish list as self-defense attorneys, but... what do we know about this guy right now? We know he aggressively came up and put an edged weapon right to his jugular vein and has been pulled away several times and is trying to go back. I think it's totally conceivable that maybe he uses that edged weapon as a projectile at this point. He's clearly expressed that he's interested in potentially harming him, doesn't seem to care much about his safety, and is trying to be aggressive some more. I don't know. Tough to say that he could retreat in total safety. He might throw the scissors at him while he's going down the stairwell, or might even stab underneath that little railing right there. Yeah. So
to be fair, if this guy pulls the trigger right now, it's probably our best case of self-defense that we've ever had.
Right.
It's a good case right here. I mean, it could be better, but it's a good case. This is something we would love to defend if he pulled the trigger right here.
No question. Let's keep going. And now...
Yeah, see, stop it here. Now, this is a disaster, right? Because clearly the bigger guy is leaving, right? No question he was the aggressor, but now he's in full retreat. Of course, you can regain your right to self-defense even if you're an aggressor, if you retreat, and then you got to communicate that. Now, we don't know what's being said here, right? He could say, I could imagine some things that he could say here that give you maybe a better argument, but at the end of the day, this guy is shooting a person in the back who is retreating. It's a tough case to defend at this point.
Absolutely. So he's walking away, and then he has a laser on his pistol, which you can see briefly on his back before discharging directly into the center of his back. Now, the stepson, who's a 27-year-old kid here, looks like he's kind of stumbling forward. He doesn't look in the video like he's trying to attack him or barrel towards him or anything like that. He simply looks to me like he's trying to maybe duck and cover or retreat or something like that. Now, Mr. Pass could argue, well, at that point, I thought he was trying to tackle me or run towards me and anything like that. But it definitely looks like only ordinary force would be necessary in order to repel that attack, even if he was kind of charging him in a tackle stance.
But, you got to be careful when you have limited data, right? We've got a silent video here. We don't know what this kid could be saying. He might have said something. It could have been misinterpreted by Mr. Pass. He could say, I got a gun. I'm going to kill you. I don't know what he's saying right there. We could only imagine what is being said. But it sure doesn't look like this kid is trying to be an aggressor here.
That's right.
It looks like he's ducking and hey, this guy was just shot. I'm getting out of here. It looks much more like that. And I agree with you, unless there's some evidence that he said something or Mr. Pass believes that he's got a weapon for some reason, it's going to be a hard case for deadly physical force here, right? Or maybe ordinary physical force because he's charging you. He's at risk of an ordinary physical injury. But if you're going to train your gun on somebody, you're going to have to make the case that you are imminent risk of death or serious physical injury. Mr. Pass is bigger than this kid as well. So I think he's got a tough argument, but one we would still defend here. No question about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep going. Okay. Now, we see several discharges of the firearm. He shoots him kind of as he's stumbling down the hall, and he shoots him again while he's on the ground.
Okay, so you got two shots there. The first one, you can almost make a case. The second one, he's on the ground. That's a really hard one to defend. But there are things we don't know, right? Maybe Mr. Pass says he said, I'm going to shoot you with my gun, and he looked like he was reaching in his pocket or something. You'd have to have something along those lines right there. And I think you got a very hard argument to make here, especially as to that second shot. It looks more like an execution than it does self-defense.
Yeah, now he's on the ground, and he is blood coming out of his shirt. It looks like from the video the threat has been neutralized at this point. And if you go one step further than when the threat was neutralized, now it's into the unreasonable zone. Now, as you said, we can't hear the audio. And another thing that this video doesn't tell us is other information that might be in Mr. Pass's head. Like, for example, we've done many cases before where our client has learned something about the person that they shot before the incident. Like, for example, if this kid has a reputation to carry around firearms in his pocket, perhaps has told Mr. Pass in the hallway before, I'll shoot you if you ever mess with me. I always carry a gun, this, that, or the next thing. So there are some hypotheticals that we could throw out there that could make that slightly more justified.
Yeah, we don't have any of that information, but of course we didn't talk to Mr. Pass, and just because we've been doing these cases for so many years, you just never know. I mean, it'd be interesting to talk to Pass here and say, why did you shoot this kid after he was already on the ground, to hear what he has to say. What's going on in his head? No idea.
Yeah, before I even click on to the next part, which is kind of the finale of the video that I think we're going to be in pretty good agreement on in terms of the legality or lack thereof, is that Mr. Pass is presumed innocent, right? He's absolutely presumed innocent. And so some of these hypotheticals that we're throwing out may seem like a stretch to some, but as criminal defense attorneys, we've seen everything under the sun. And oftentimes when we start digging into a case, we find information that surprises even us after seeing as many different situations as we have. So the whole point here, and I think this is what the Founding Fathers were getting at when they talk about the importance of we'd rather 10 guilty people go free than one innocent person go and have to live in a cage. That's what's really important about what we do as criminal defense attorneys is this guy is owed the right to assert his innocence, and he is owed the right to talk to a criminal defense attorney who will advocate for him. So that's...
But you got a tough case at this point.
It's very tough at this point.
But that's what we do.
We would need to see something that this video doesn't show in order to even get into the realm of justified shooting at this point. Let's keep going.
Oof.
And then calmly walks over to the elevator. It's not even moving quickly, doesn't even appear to be elevated. All of that, of course, irrelevant to the analysis of valid self-defense, but pretty chilling stuff.
Yeah, that one's tough, right? It's hard to think of anything that could possibly justify that last shooting. That just looks like an execution.
Yeah, and certainly in a state where one has a duty to retreat. He's now in New York, and so to make the argument that he couldn't reasonably go down that staircase or back into his home, I mean, there were numerous times throughout our analysis here where he arguably could have done that. But this one, I think there's no doubt that he could have gone somewhere else rather than calmly walked over to him and executed him in the hallway.
I got to say, I like to think outside the box and be creative, but this is a tough one.
This is very tough.
If this guy comes into our office right now and that's the video, we're going to have a really hard time. It's hard for me to even imagine what he could possibly say to get that anywhere remotely close to an argument for self-defense.
That's right. I totally agree with that. Now, anything else to say about this video, Mark? I think we've gone well through it.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say is that's my tentative conclusion right now. I haven't talked to Mr. Pass. I'd be interested in getting him into the office, assuming we could, and say, why did you do this? What's going on? It's hard for me to think of a defense, but I wouldn't rule out that there might be something he could say. There could also be something that goes to mitigation, right? Maybe the guy's got mental health issues, PTSD issues, something like that. I don't know. Like you say, there could be past conduct issues. Mitigation is not something that gets you to not guilty. Mitigation is something that gets you to a better deal, less time in the system. So I think sometimes people forget it's not just a matter for us of what we'll call the guilt phase, which is the person guilty of a particular crime or some other crime, maybe a lesser included. But it's also a question of what's the proper punishment.
Does the punishment fit the crime?
Yeah, and there are many cases we get where the person's clearly guilty, right? They did it. Everybody saw them do it. All the evidence suggests they did it. Maybe they confessed to it. You might say, what's left to do? A lot. You still got the sentencing phase, right? The question of what should happen to this person now is often where all the activity is on the case. Maybe it would be that kind of a case here. I don't know what's going on in this guy's head.
Yeah, let's analyze this as if this client was an AOR member. Let's pretend, for example, he was on AOR before this, and he were to call the emergency hotline. Let's say that he called it in the middle of the night after this incident occurred, looking for advice. I think definitely he would be guaranteed that we would spring into action immediately, even before analyzing this and doing a full analysis of it, because he's owed a presumption of innocence and he's owed an opportunity to explain it to his counsel and his advocates.
So imagining this guy's an AOR member, he gets on the elevator, he goes downstairs, and he calls the hotline for attorneys on retainer. He gets me or you. We're going to immediately give the guy advice, tell him not to make any statements. We're going to get him into the office, assuming he's not arrested, and talk to him about his story. But when we see that video, we're probably going to change our mind.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, we would give it a full analysis like we just did, and we would discuss with him, make it very clear what the law allows in terms of asserting a good faith argument for self-defense, and this is likely not a case that we would cover.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy we could represent if we wanted to, because we're a law firm, and we represent people who commit crimes.
Yeah, to be clear, if he said, well, I'd like to hire you even if it's not covered by the AOR program because of the evidence showing that there's no good faith argument for a good shoot, we'll say, absolutely.
No problem.
Well, that's not covered by the AOR and you're going to have to pay for it. We can give you a discount because you're an AOR client and everything like that. Happy to represent you.
Yeah, we'll go pretty far to cover it under the AOR plan, even if you screwed it up, right, and you committed a crime. But you got to have at least a good faith argument that it's self-defense. And without a lot more information, I have trouble seeing that here. So this is probably one of those cases that's outside the realm of what we would even handle under the AOR program.
But I would keep an open mind.
Absolutely.
I've been surprised many times in my life. And
we give the guy a full hearing.
We would give the guy a full and fair hearing, see exactly what the evidence shows.
We'd let him make his case for sure.
That's absolutely right. All right, I think we're in agreement on this. If you guys have any questions about it, it's kind of a complex, nuanced analysis up until the end, right? There are many times up until it's escalated where we think it's very defensible, and then the video kind of turns a corner at some point and becomes very, very difficult to defend.
Yeah, incidentally, I don't think we're ever going to get the answers to these questions because apparently a few days later, this fellow committed what we like to call suicide by cop.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier, that there's a Chapter 2 here, and the Chapter 2 is that unfortunately, or perhaps from some people's perspective, fortunately, the guy did end up getting shot by the police after allegedly charging them with a knife. So
there's
that's the end of that story.
There's a great example of everything not to do if you want to be a responsible firearms owner. This guy literally did almost everything wrong.
That's right. Yeah. If only the cooler heads of the woman there who's trying to pull everybody apart and get everybody back in the apartment would have prevailed there. But it goes to show you not to put yourself in this kind of a stupid position in the first place if it can be avoided.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Leave us your comments. If you liked the analysis, like it. If you have more questions for us that we missed or you'd like answered about this video, simply leave us a comment. We respond to all of them. Subscribe to our channel, share the video if you liked it, and go and check out attorneysforfreedom.com to learn more about our law firm, as well as attorneysonretainer.us to learn all about the AOR program and how it can help you. Until next time, this is Attorney Andy Marcantel and Attorney Marc J. Victor.
Peace.